That ought to publish it, everyone that subscribes or whatever. Yeah, she said. It's not. Yeah. Yes, it's. I was campaign management. Where I want to be. Okay. Check. Mic check. Listing. So. Yeah. Strong. Six again. Check. Check 1 2. Hello. Check 1 2.
Testing.
Check. Mic check 1 2. Whoa. There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Tech support.
Yeah, okay, so it's telling me.
So go. Good afternoon, friends and neighbors. How you all doing? Welcome to our town hall, the Board of Directors Town Hall. First one we've had in quite some time. First, a few housekeeping rules tonight. Please, first of all, if you have a cell phone, put it on silent. As we proceed, we're going to, this is kind of like the plan we want to go forward with. We're going to make a presentation. After our presentation, we will take all questions, and any concerns you may have, you can present them to us as well. From the dog next door to the line down the road, a 4 Clark ain't being painted, whatever your concern is, bring it on. But first, we're going to make our presentation. A couple of things to make clear. One of the questions I've been asked numerous times as I'm walking through Fort Clark is why people have left Fort Clark, whether voluntarily or volunteer positions or working positions. My standard response is, we live in the United States of America. People can come and go as they please. It's really important to understand, number one. In the last couple of months since May, I need to brag a little bit about my fellow directors. Lisa has kind of taken the helm of the situation. She's made some decisions on behalf of the fort with all our support. All the directors have been behind Lisa since day one. And that needs to be very clear. She has had our full support in all her decisions, and she has kept us abreast of all the decisions she's made. Since John's been on the board, he's been a big asset to us in the sense of his knowledge with machinery. I've never known a person, or I've never associated with a person with so much knowledge regarding machines. And in that sense, he has saved us time and money in regards to equipment that has been faltering for quite some time. Jason's appointment recently, he's been a humongous success in the last couple of weeks regarding our computer systems, our technology, and if nothing else, he's able to explain it to all of us so that we can all understand. And we're working towards bettering it rapidly as well. And using it, a lot of stuff wasn't being used. Tony, our other appointed member, has done an outstanding job since his appointment. He has a lot of experience as a former district attorney in Medina County. He is really good at detecting shady characters. And in that sense, he's been a big help to us. I want to make another thing clear. I am up for re-election in March. Myself and Jason. There's going to be 2 positions open. In the fall, we're going to be calling for an election committee. We'll be looking for volunteers. This place is full of talent, very intelligent people. A lot of people with a lot of good ideas because I hear them all the time. Please come forward, apply, put your application in for the position. I have yet to decide whether I'm going to run or not. I might not. I don't know yet. I don't know what Jason's going to do. He's his own person. He'll decide that. But in the meantime, we have an election coming up. 2 positions. I want to make it clear. It is open for anyone here or on the board. A member can apply to run. And I encourage everyone to do that. On a side note regarding Tony Hackerville, which I forgot to mention, since I've gotten to know him since he's been here, he's become kind of like my hero. He told me he played for Rice University football team, and he played against Earl Campbell when Earl Campbell was at the University of Texas. And he tackled Earl Campbell. So if he can tackle Earl Campbell, he can do anything.
That's why I walked the way I did.
So again, welcome everyone. And again, we're open to, we're going to stay here as long as we need to, as long as you want to. And we're going to answer all questions. Thank you very much.
I'll stand up here. What I'd like to say is probably what most people are wondering is we have found a GM. He has accepted our offer and will be starting with us as soon as he gets his affairs in order. And so I just want to say, yay. His name is Patrick Grimminger. That's the last name. So he has a lot of experience, a lot of QuickBooks, technology, HOA type. Do it. Country club. So golf, that type of thing. So we're very excited to have him on board, and I hope everybody else will give him a warm welcome. We'll have more information by the board meeting as to when he's going to onboard with us. And now I'm going to turn it over to John.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for showing up. That's not working. It's the mic slot. Talk about first of all, I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank all the Fort Clark employees. There's been some rough patches, I think, among some of the employees, and we've actually sat with them and talked to them and told them the change is hard. But I think even the people that we vehemently disagree with in this community would probably also agree. The one thing we could probably all agree on is that change is needed. That this community has stayed the same way for a very long time, and change is hard. It's experimental. It's not always right, and it's very often wrong. But without the wrong, we don't know what the right is. So we have to experiment, figure out what these changes are, and move forward with it. But move forward as an association. And we're not always going to do everything perfect. I'm sure we've made some mistakes, but just want to give a big shout out to all the employees. They've really stepped up. They've done a good job, and we really, really appreciate it. On the board up here, you'll see some of the accomplishments that we've had in the last few months. Did you got flyers printed out? Like just VTO and all that stuff? Y'all have in your hands, you have some VTO, Vision Traction Organizer stuff that hasn't been has never happened in this association before. And I think as a group, we're really proud of that. When I ran for the board, I said one of my big things was structure, discipline, and making sure that we have measurables, and we're trying to accomplish that. It'll take some time, but we'll get there. I want to talk a little bit about why we're here. I hope everybody is here because they have some concerns that they would like to talk about. But unfortunately, I think there's people here because of some negative stuff going on within the community. And I don't appreciate it. I know that most of the people that are decent within this community don't appreciate it. And it's not helpful. And so we're going to start out with a letter that presumably everybody here has had from Mrs. Hagan. It's been blasted to the community. In my opinion, it is a very inappropriate letter. It does not stand on merit. And I'll explain some of that stuff to you and talk about some of the characters and some of the stuff that's happened since I've gotten on the board. But let me go ahead and clear something up real quick. There's been concerns of the members of why I'm the one sitting here talking. And it's because I've asked for the privilege. I took board training. I understand how a board works. And Lisa is the chair. And she can give that privilege to whoever she likes. That's the way it works. I've asked for the privilege to address you and to work through Sandy Hagan's letter here and some of these issues that are affecting the fort. Okay, Sandy, let me, you are correct. Yes, ma'am, you are correct. So the signatures of this letter are Sandy Hagan, Bill Herman, Linda O'Brien, and Chris Race. 3 of those people are present today. You're correct, Sandy. Sorry. Is Linda here? I didn't see. Oh, okay. Hey, Linda. I want to start off by setting the stage for you just a little bit. And yes, Sandy, I'm going to bring your name up multiple times. A few meetings back, we talked about rumors and ethics. At the direction of Mrs. Ray, she wanted to talk about the code of ethics, which we've all read and we've all talked about as a group. We all believe in them. We might interpret them slightly different. That's just human nature, but we do believe in them. And one of the things that Mrs. Hagan said while she was standing up here was that, well, I think she was actually back there, said that rumors should not be spread in this community, that we should go to the source. None of this did they go to the source. This letter was put out before going to the source and having a discussion with us about the right and the wrong of this letter. There was also a comment made by Mrs. Hagan that she at no point in time in the future would ever want to go through the process of overthrowing a board again. But I think there's probably people in this room that understand that that's happening right now. So I'm going to set the stage for y'all a little bit with 2 encounters that I've had since getting on this board. This is my testimony. These are phone calls that I had, and this is first account of what has happened. Since Linda has left the board, I have received multiple phone calls from her. One of those phone calls was about having a side meeting because I'm the de facto president of the board, and that her, Bill Herman, and Sandy would like to take over the HOA aspects of the board, and that they would still be governed by this board. However, the committee would manage the HOA, and that we would manage the business side of the fort, and to do this behind the other members' backs, which I said, I will never do anything behind the other members' backs, my other board members, and that I will talk to them about this before meeting with you. And to be fair, I don't know that it's necessarily a horrible idea. I would not discourage somebody from bringing an idea to this board, this body, to help. I would not discourage that. But the place for that is in this room. It is not on a phone call behind a shady door or in the night. It's here in this room. That's where that happens. Second phone call I received, also from Linda O'Brien, was about Mr. Huey. I'll speak about that.
No, you're fine.
Is it working?
Yeah, it was working too good.
Was about Mr. Huey bringing investors in and promising that the front gate would be fixed and pretty beautified, and that the all the fence in the front of this property would be repaired, and in return they would manage all of the assets of the fort. So I'm gonna ask a question. Were any of the other board members present today pitched this idea and or asked about this idea? No, just me. Why? Ask yourself why. No, Linda, you can't. You'll have time at the end of this. And I'm not making you out to necessarily be a criminal, Linda. I'm not. That second one is not necessarily your fault. So I'm going to work through Sandy's letter here. I'm not going to read it. She's more than welcome, I guess, at the end of this to read it, but I'm going to break it down and compartmentalize it a little bit. The question's been asked many times in her letter here. She asked it, is why people resigned. And, you know, I don't know how many people in here that have owned their own business, operated their own business, had employees. But generally, when you hold people accountable, it gets rough, okay? When people want to go home at noon and you tell them to stay till 5, and that's not a direct something that's happened with this association. However, if that was going to happen in a hypothetical, yeah, they're probably going to get a little upset, okay? So we have implemented vision traction organizers, set goals for this community and move forward. And with that, we've also set our values. And those values were set by a full board, Chris Race, Linda, and Mr. Peterson, all of us being here. Okay, and then Memo, Lisa, and I. And we all agreed on those values. And I honestly can't think of a time that we have breached those values. And I'm not talking about perfection, folks. We're not perfect. We're people just like you that we're sitting out there, that are sitting here just trying to do the best job that we can. Okay? But when you start holding people accountable and you start changing things and you start trying to recreate a better structure, I'm not talking about marketing. I'm not talking about bringing Motel 6 in here and Holiday Inn and, 6,000 people for a solar eclipse. I'm talking about the roots and the fundamentals of this association to make it better. When you start doing that, it gets hard. When it's been wrong for a long time, it's hard. Max is sitting out here. I'll bring him up. He's come in as a contractor to help take care of the fort, almost for free to this association. And if anybody's gone by the golf course, you can see the improvement. And it's because he believes in these rules. He believes in accountability and hard work and communication and bettering yourself from day to day. And you can see it in the golf course. That's not an accident. That's real. So there's I'm going to keep going down the questions here. One of her questions was about health insurance for our employees. It is under control. Julie has been working on the health insurance and getting the packets together to figure out how all that stuff is going to be handled. It is not the board's job to handle that. It is a function of HR and the general manager, which all of that will be accomplished in due time. Obviously, nobody's health insurance is going to lapse. On the budget, I know there's been a lot of concern about the budget. There's a lot of concern on our end about the budget. We're working on the budget. We had a meeting with the managers the other day. We asked them if there were any underovers that we needed to know about. And Matt Bland is the only one that had concerns about his budget. We also asked him, has there ever been a meeting where managers were asked about the budget? And the answer was no. But we're doing something wrong. So we are working on the budget, and as the general manager gets in here, what we're doing is we're working with the last year's fiscal budget, and we will make adjustments as we go forward, and we will get to the point of trying to get the budget perfectly in line. Obviously, we're spinning a lot of plates right now trying to make sure that everything gets done, okay? But what we have done, and just correct me on some of this if I'm wrong, everybody knows Memo's the penny pincher. So we have canceled all spending, okay, to where employees, it's $250 for employees they can't spend over that without talking to us. Is it 500? It's $500. I think we started 250 and then we settled on 500 because we tried 250 for a couple of weeks, but then it ended up getting too many requests. But we have slowed the spending down and we've stayed with only the necessary items that the association needs to move forward. I don't care if you have a budget or not. If you're buying what's necessary, it doesn't matter. If you run out of bread at your house and you don't have any money to buy it, you're going to go get a credit card and get bread. That's what you're going to do because it's necessary. Okay. So we are very aware of this and we're doing what we can do to manage it until we get all of it worked out and get all the details. Okay. But nobody's being negligent or not caring about it. Landfill. This one's hard, guys. This is going to be a shocker. Okay. We are in no crisis with the landfill. There's absolutely no crisis. All y'all have done is been manipulated by certain individuals of this community into thinking that there's a crisis. So let me explain a little bit about the landfill. If the landfill stopped today, we had no landfill. As long as Eagle Pass's landfill is in open for business, it costs the association almost no money, if not saves us money. So let me explain that. Monday is pickup day. Okay? We can't control that cost. It doesn't change. It's a fixed cost. Tuesday is not a fixed cost because the option would be for the dump to be open or to be closed. If it's closed and we have to take all the trash and put it in a dumpster, that's $800. Okay? Now, if the dump is open, on Tuesday, they put the trash in the dumpster and or put it in the dump. If the dump is open, it takes 3 men approximately 7 hours to handle the trash at the dump. It also is accompanied with a bulldozer, a backhoe, and a dump truck, all of which we put diesel in, pay for tires in, maintenance and repairs, and just overall general maintenance. We have to then put all of those men on those 3 pieces of equipment for them to put that trash in the dump, cover it up, and do their due diligence and be done. As it sits right now, we have about 1 year in the landfill. Okay, that's where we're at. Now, if the landfill was shut down today, it's $800 a week for a dumpster to be delivered over here at the motor pool. It takes one guy on Tuesday to fill the dumpster on his Tuesday, approximately 6 to 7 hours. That saves us 2 guys, and at just 40 weeks out of the year, that's over 300 hours. 300 hours that 2 guys can do more work for this association. There's no crisis. But let me tell you what there is. There's been some serious infractions at the landfill. So, Mr. Ward, Blake Ward, in the last board with Mr. Huey as president, was contracted, and I have an invoice, and we all have an invoice, for almost $18,000 that has not been paid by the board. When I got on the board, the very first executive session that I went into, I sat down, and Memo brought up a question about the dump and said, do we have any surprise bills coming up? Mr. Peterson's response was, well, there's like a 15 to 20,000, I think he actually said 15,000. $15,000 bill that might be coming up at the dump. Heck, I didn't know what anybody was talking about. None of us knew what they was talking about. And Memo said, well, how would you not know about that? What work's been done out there? And he said, well, the ground's been scraped off in preparation for the cells to be coming. And that question was asked, how would you not know about that? Mr. Peterson did not reply to that, if I remember correctly, y'all correct me, and shrugged his shoulders. And we did our best to move on from there. What I've learned now is that at the direction of Travis Huey and Mr. Peterson, Blake Ward was asked to start the clearing of the landfill and the presumed contract of $235,000 to install the next 3 cells, to do engineering himself, which it's not uncommon to provide the engineering, to build the next 3 cells, but y'all never knew about it. It never came to the board. There was no approval. There was no talking to the public about it. I got the bills to prove it. So I think we all got to think real hard about who is doing the wrong in this community, okay? Because we're not in a crisis in the landfill. There is a mathematical equation to solve the problem. And we now have the money through also the good work of the board preceding us and president of the board preceding us, Mr. Huey, at the same time, getting the ERC money. Give credit where credit's due, okay? But this was not in the budget. It was not talked about to the public. It was not voted on at the board level, and work commenced at the bill of $18,000. Now, I don't know about y'all, but that violates every single code of ethics we have. When Mr. Peterson left, 2 reasons that we do not know right now, the surety bond was canceled. We discussed that slightly. We don't know why that was done either. But it kept us from being able to put trash in the landfill, which obviously generated the foam that got everybody upset about the crisis of the potential landfill not being here. There's a question about recruiting of the GM. We do have the surety bond and everything's good. We're fine. We're using the landfill now. There's no issues, okay? Her next question is about recruiting of the GM. Mrs. Wiley we'll talk about that at the end here. And there's some pretty heavy accusations about the appointment of Jason Long. And so I'll just leave that to him. Mr. Long, were you ever approached or told by anybody on this board or this body that you were appointed prior to showing up here and being appointed?
I was not, and I did ask and was told. Gave information. No idea.
Next question is employment openings. I don't know all the laws. I don't even think Tony knows all of them. But we're a private entity and don't necessarily have to advertise every job that comes up. Matter of fact, since I've been here, I think we've lost some maintenance people, and Philip said, I'll backfill it. That was never advertised. So this is where I'm not going to say we're perfect, okay? There's some people that are upset about some people that have been hired in the last few months. And I get it. I understand. But what you don't understand is that we sat in executive session and gave Lisa all of,
Be careful about what you talk about in the executive session.
okay.
Don't reveal what you discussed in the
So can we not talk about giving Lisa rights?
The rights were established in
The bylaws. Okay. Let me rephrase this. Lisa is the ex officio officer of a nonprofit organization. That is the same thing as being the CEO of this organization. Okay. So if there is no GM, which we are supposed to have in place and is in our governing documents, if there's no GM in place, she is technically the president and the general manager. There's no general manager. The ex officio is the president. It's in our documents. Okay, so any nonprofit would have a CEO. We don't have that. We have a board managing a general manager. But if that general manager is gone, by default, the president would be the general manager, which can then be delegated to an interim general manager. And obviously, there's lots of avenues to go here, and a lot of it's political. I mean, let's be real, a lot of it's political. But we did what we felt was best, and we've been behind every decision that has been made by our president. The next question is about Lisa managing Daniel at Dickman Bar. Look, I can show you multiple emails where Lisa has asked for guidance on questions that refer directly to Daniel. She did not hire Daniel. Daniel was here when she became president, and to my knowledge, has not given him any individual directives to tell him what to do. He works at the bar. Are we supposed to fire him? I mean, and to my knowledge, doesn't make that much money part-time working at the bar. Let's pick our battles, okay? I've already addressed, our next question is about me conducting meetings. I ask Lisa for a lot of latitude. She grants that to me. She has that authority as the chair. The president is also the chair of a board. The chair of a board's duty is to make sure that all members are engaged, board members are engaged in board meetings, and that they are talking about the issues and that the opinions are being withdrawn out of each individual board member. That's why our code of ethics says that a board member has to participate. That's why, because it's also that's why it's part of our code of ethics, because it's part of the chair's job. Okay. But the chair is obviously generally the president as well. It's all in our documents. The next question that Mrs. Hagan the group brought up was employees feeling threatened and by creating positions and hiring friends and family of friends. And look, when I grew up here, the name Wiley was said in a lot of contexts, not always good. Okay, but everybody knew me. And I mean, we're going to say 80% of people. Okay, everybody knew my wife. Everybody knows everybody. Okay, so does that mean when you hire somebody that you're your friends and your family? And more specifically, Danny, which is leaving us at the golf course, I believe her husband's moving. They're moving for work stuff, and Danny actually asked for Megan to be appointed to her position. Not in that context, but asked to be, hey, this would be a good replacement.
Not everyone knows who Megan is.
Megan Vale, Lisa's daughter. She's not working at the golf course. Okay? She's not there. Megan's not at the golf course.
Yeah, she worked.
But she's not working in Danny's position.
No.
She's not working in Danny's position, okay? And the email that when that recommendation came through from Danny, the first email that Lisa sent to us was, I have to recuse myself from making any decisions on this. This is my daughter. In the event that she did fill Danny's position, it would have to be all of y'all. So, employees feeling threatened and created by these created positions, I feel for them. I get it. Assuming that we've all had a working life and a working career, anytime there's a job created around you, it is threatening. And but that's called capitalism. And you know, it's it should make us all want to be better and look in the mirror a little bit and see what we could do better and what we could improve at to be a better service to our community and or the job that we're doing. And that doesn't just go for them, it goes for myself and all of us. The acting, the next question she brought up was a point that she brought up was acting unilaterally. All actions, once again, have been discussed by the board, and there has been no directors acting in a singular capacity without the other board members knowing what's going on. At least a briefing. Now, we might not remember all of them. We're dealing with, like I said, we're spinning a lot of plates, but we have discussed all of the issues moving forward. I want us all to remember, and I'm not sure how this got started, and I think that there's more people in this room that would know more and have much. And if you have something to share, look, we're not trying to tear people down. We're trying to keep from getting tore down. Okay? This community needs to heal. And I'm not 100% sure what has spurred some of this, but my suspicion is that sometimes we all know that person that feels like they're so right, but you can see that they're so wrong. And we're human, and that's part of it, right? And I don't know how to overcome that other than to try to bring the facts out and that we keep talking. I don't dislike Sandy Hagan. I don't dislike Mr. Herman or Mrs. Race. I truly think there are things that we all can agree on. But a movement to overthrow a board that, in my opinion, has done nothing wrong, but try to manage the situation that we are in due to the fact that presumably people don't want to be held accountable. People don't want to act with integrity. They like things staying exactly the way they've been for 20 years. Unfortunately, this has blocked us from getting to the point of getting to more of those visionary goals because we're dealing with all this other stuff. And I'm thoroughly excited that we have a new general manager to come in that I certainly believe 100% has capability to do this job. And that will allow us to get back to doing board functions, calm some of this down, and pay more attention to the issues that you all have. We wanted to get some of this out in the open. We all make mistakes. I've made plenty of them. And so I'm not trying to step on people's toes and make people upset. None of us are. But some of this stuff's got to stop. Some of it's got to stop. It should stop today, and it should stop right here. And I hope that we all have a open arms effect approach with Mr. Kriminger, and that we give him our full support. And I really thank everybody for being here today, and can't wait to talk about the issues at hand that y'all all want to talk about. And I'll hand it over to Lisa.
Full crowd today, so I have some papers, but not enough to share. Christina, could you help just kind of get them up? So I don't bring it up too much. Okay, so my name is Brittany Wiley.
Move up.
My name is Brittany Wiley. Can I have a quick show of hands of who has seen or knows about the letter that John was referencing previously? Okay, majority. Okay, so real quick, I'm just going to address the portion that was directed at me. So reading from, and it was eventually emailed to me by a friend. So allegedly, an individual who is neither an employee nor a director is heading the search for a new general manager instead of our human resources professional. Not only is a search for the GM a direct function of human resources, but the individual is the wife of a director. The individual should be working under the direction of human resources, not instead of. The status of the search for a GM should be discussed at the next general meeting. So that's a quote from that letter. Okay, so my first reaction after being named in the letter was to feel attacked. But after some thought, frustration, and a lot of prayer, I came to the realization that most of you don't know me. And unfortunately, in this day and age, it's the instinct of many to be wary of others. So, I mean, for all you know, I'm an evil supervillain. And me volunteering my time at Fort Clark Springs is step one of my master plan to take over the world. So, all kidding aside, I wanted to take this opportunity provided to me by that letter to introduce myself and give some details regarding my volunteer efforts. And just a quick disclaimer, I printed all of the packets myself and all the ink and the paper was purchased by me. My name is Brittany Wiley. Again, I am fourth generation to Brackettville. My grandmother was born at Fort Clark Springs Hospital, which is the adult center that we all now know today. I grew up visiting family in Brackettville, and in the 7th grade, my mom, brother, and I moved here. I graduated from Brackett High, and fun fact, I worked as a waitress and a bartender at the Los Morris restaurant for several years while I drove back and forth to college in Delray Valley. I then moved away, but I came home often to visit family and friends. And John and I were married here in Brackettville, and we had a reception at the NCL Club. I share this so that you get to know me a little bit better, and you know that this place is weaved through many chapters in my life, and my roots and love for this community run very deep. So now to the nitty-gritty. In your packets, you'll find a copy of my resume. I apologize, some of them may not have my resume attached, but I'm happy to share it with you. The highlights of my career which apply to our discussion today are a master's degree in technical communication, over 2 decades of work history to include experience as a marketing director, government proposal writer, editor, and director of talent acquisition, aka recruiter. So addressing the concerns in the letter, was I heading the search for the new general manager? No. I was providing support by volunteering as a recruiter. Does Fort Clark Springs employ a recruiter? Not to my knowledge, and that's why I offered to volunteer my skill sets and services. Am I qualified to volunteer in the role of a recruiter? The answer is yes. So when I was director of talent acquisition for Inflow, I recruited some of the most unique personnel in the most hard to fill positions. This included people with top secret clearances, former military experience, had to have an up-to-date full scope polygraph on file, specialized education, and sometimes willing to relocate to the Middle East and also work for government wages. So in other words, a unicorn. And so how do you convince a person like that to apply for your job opening that you just posted on your company website or maybe advertised in the newspaper? You don't. You have to go find them. Does the role of a recruiter replace the role of an HR manager? No, they are 2 different roles. So typically when a company does not employ a recruiter, HR personnel will typically oversee posting job descriptions, and then they'll funnel any applicants to the hiring managers, but they don't have time to actively search for candidates because an HR department has lots of things to do every day. What does a recruiter do that's different from an HR department? So again, actively source and recruit candidates to a position. For example, most companies post that job and then they just wait to receive applicants. So you're in a situation where the people that are applying for that job are in the job market at the exact same time, and they know to look where you posted the job. And so it's a right person at the right time approach, and it requires luck. And that doesn't always work well when you're trying to fill a position with unique requirements. So a recruiter actively sources resumes, cold calls potential candidates. If someone answers, pitch the job opportunity in the company. If a candidate is responsive, they help usher the candidate into the hiring process. And if the candidate is not interested, a recruiter seeks out secondary referrals to network and grow the pipeline of candidates. And so what did I do for Fort Clark Springs Association? First of all, I asked permission to help. I understand that I'm the wife of a board member. I was concerned that this very thing would happen, but I did receive full approval from the board. And I believe that they felt that it was important that I be able to volunteer my skill sets versus saying no because I'm married to a board member.
Did you become a board member?
Could I become a board
Your
member?
husband?
No. Do you believe that that precludes me from volunteering?
No, not at all.
Okay, thank you. So I asked permission to help, I received approval, and I received approval in all of my dealings in the volunteer capacity. I was engaged with President Lisa Vale and Julie Moreno, HR manager. So I specifically asked Ms. Vale to determine the best approach of my interactions, the level of support that I could provide, and also what would be most convenient and comfortable for Ms. Moreno. With Mr. Peterson leaving, she had a lot on her plate, and I was wanting to step in and help support her. But I do not live here. I had to work remotely, and also I wanted to make sure she was comfortable. Maybe she was more comfortable speaking with Lisa, and so it's my understanding that Lisa had that conversation with Ms. Moreno, and they came to the conclusion that I would work remotely, and that if I had any questions, I would reach out to Mrs. Vale, and she would confer with Ms. Moreno. Each step of the way, I confirmed approval with Ms. Vale before proceeding to the next recruiting step. I copied the HR manager, Ms. Moreno, and the board president on all of my correspondence with potential candidates. I also provided email updates to Ms. Vale and Ms. Moreno with a breakdown of my conversations with candidates. I also disclosed to each and every candidate on the phone and in my email signature lines my status as a volunteer. I ran numerous searches for resumes. I called and emailed potential candidates, and I also asked for referrals from them. So each interested candidate that I spoke to, I handed them off via email to the board president and the HR manager. And when I spoke to a candidate that was not interested, I asked them for referrals, and I emailed a synopsis of that conversation and its results to the HR manager and the board president. Finally, I want to close with this. Love your neighbor. Hearing this as a child, it didn't seem like it would be such a hard rule to follow, but then you grow up and you join a homeowners association. Fun fact, did you know that love your neighbor is one of the Bible's most repeated commands? I internet searched it 9 times. 9 times. I mean, it's as if God knew we would be here today in this very moment at Fort Clark Springs, Texas. Here at Fort Clark Springs, we have wonderful employees working hard every single day. We have amazing volunteers that give so much of their time. And we have members who pay good money to call this place home. I'm going to say it again. I've said it before in meetings. We all have the same goal. We all love this place. We may not agree on how to get there, but we have to be a team. We are a team. And together as a team of neighbors, I'm emphasizing that, we can not only hold down the fort, but we can build it back up again. Let's work together. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and thank you to the board for letting me speak.
Thank you, Brittany. I felt the urge to say a couple of things, and after I say them, you'll figure out why. But I once heard a story, and first of all, let me say that I'm anxious to get to the part about this that's called the town hall meeting, where we get to hear from any one of you, and I mean all of you that want to say something, every one of you. I once heard a story from an old musician friend of mine who's dead now, and then had coincidentally the opportunity to experience the same thing that happened in this story. Almost in the exact same place that my old musician friend's incident happened. I was sitting in the Los Angeles International Airport. And as you can imagine, very much unlike the crowd in this room tonight, but the crowd in the Los Angeles International Airport was quite diverse. Somebody sitting about 2 seats away from me sneezed. And I said, "God bless you." That person and the 2 people sitting with him looked at me, and if looks could kill, I'd have died on the spot. And I panicked momentarily and looked at all of them and said, "Well, may the God of your choice bless you." That seemed to take the edge off of things. But on the way over here tonight, and I shared this with a couple of the board members, I prayed. I prayed that I could, as a member of this board and as an individual, engage with each and every one of you in a manner that results in peace, dignity. Whether we agree or not doesn't make any difference. And it just occurred to me while I was saying all of that, I feel like I'm preaching, or I've been a lawyer for over 40 years, and I feel like I'm about to make a final argument, and I'm not. And it's hard to get out of that. My wife accuses me of that all the time, making final arguments to her when we have a disagreement. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it on purpose. And I do want to hear from every one of you. But when the opportunity came and I realized there was an opening on the board, I thought, I think I'm going to do that. And my wife and I debated it, whether it should be her or me. And she says she's busier than I am, but I'm not going to argue that. And so she said, "You ought to do it." And I said, "Okay, that'll be fun." I don't think I even have to say anything after that, because all of you are laughing and you understand what I'm talking about. I did take the opportunity afterwards to review some YouTube recordings of meetings that have been held, not in front of this board, but in front of previous boards. And I thought to myself, what in the hell have I gotten myself into? Folks, I really believe in this board of directors, and I'm not trying to ring my own bell here, but I think it needs to be pointed out. First of all, John Wiley speaks from his heart. I have gotten to know him that well. He speaks from his heart. He's a smart man. He won't lie to you. And believe me, I've cross-examined him a few times. He and I happened to work together a little while over at the county attorney's office. We got to know each other and realized we have some common ground. We know a lot of the same people. I respect the man. He brings an opinion to the board that is his own opinion. We recently had a couple of differences of opinion, but you know what? We got past it. That's how you work together. I've talked a little bit about John and Brittany, and they are passionate about this place. There's no question about it. Jason has brought something to the board that is so far beyond my capability that I don't even want to think about it. I don't even like to talk about it. The technology and the condition of the technological sources in this place were horrible. And we are on the road to recover. We're on the road, especially with the GM that we have made an offer to and that he has accepted. It appears to me that between Jason and that guy, and I'm not discounting you, Memo, maybe you know more than I know, but my point is, we have made huge strides in that regard. And let me share something with you. When we started talking about the issue with QuickBooks, and as far as I'm concerned, QuickBooks is a game you play. I don't even know what the hell it is. I've never used QuickBooks. I don't intend to ever use QuickBooks. If I ever need it, I'll hopefully have the resources to hire somebody to do it, because I just can't. But we started looking at, and I guess I can raise this issue because it's not a secret. Fort Clark Springs is so far behind in collecting homeowners association dues that it is scary.
Always behind.
Excuse me?
But it's always been behind.
You may be right. I didn't get on this board until about 2 months ago. But what I've discovered about it is appalling to me. And so in the process of having our discussion about that, it occurred to somebody on the board, and to this day, I don't know exactly who it is, and they probably aren't going to admit it to me, but we decided to look up whether any of us on the board were delinquent. Guess what? I hadn't paid 1 red cent of dues. 1 red cent since I became a member. Now, that's probably my fault, but I'm not going to go into all of the details. I thought I had made arrangements for that to be done, and that it would be an automatic draft from my account. It didn't happen, folks. So it could be something extremely low-level, fundamental to get us back in shape where we can collect all the dues that are necessary and stay on top of it. But in the meantime, we have this new approach to technology that I really believe is going to solve the problem. And we're going to get back on track to doing that. Now, the last thing I want to say, and then I want every single one of you to come up and talk if you want to, or if you have something to say, or if you want a question. But the last thing I have to say is that I have to give Lisa Bale credit beyond credit. She obviously has a pretty firm backbone, because I venture to guess a lot of the people that I personally know that would have been put in the position that she was in to run the show here would have absolutely fallen to pieces. And that has to do not only with the mammoth task of managing the goings-on, the daily goings-on of the business of the fort, but she was doing it while trying to deflect criticism that was being heaped on her and all of us. Hell, I read correspondence that claimed that I was incompetent and shouldn't be on the board. Now, You know, I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy in the world, but I hadn't even been on the board for 2 months. I hadn't had a chance to screw up. At least I didn't think so. Now, I may really make some big mistakes in the future, but give me a chance. You know, give me a chance to make those mistakes. So, I really didn't mean, and I hope I haven't sounded to you like I'm preaching. I love this place, and I want to see all of the business get in order of the fort. I had the good fortune to meet Chris Hale, and we had conversation and talk about a few of the things. He really gave me some insight. And you know what? I don't think anything he said was a rumor. I don't do well with rumors. In fact, I know that anything he said was not a rumor. But I'm really glad to see all of you here. I'm even more glad that I was able to be here. And I hope that from this day forward, you'll always feel welcome to talk to any one of us at any time. And let's start that dialogue and have that conversation where we can begin to heal. We need to heal, and we need to do it so that we can all benefit from this beautiful place. And I really believe that we are on the right road at this time. Thank you very much.
Back to follow. You want to try, Jason, or no?
Let's wait for the questions.
Okay. Well, okay, so we're done. I don't need to add anything else. And I'm not good at it anyway. If you have a question or a concern or anything, please feel free to come up to the mic. And like I said, we'll be here until dusk.
Everybody needs to
Well,
come up to the mic.
dark.
Everything's being recorded. Please.
Thank you. For anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Darwin Young. And sometimes I voice complaints. Sometimes I get compliments. Tonight I'll do a little bit of both. First off, I'd like to thank Miss Wiley for remembering my name and asking me about my wife. She broke her hip. And it takes a person that cares to remember, because I haven't met her that often. And I appreciate the statement. And I've made statements about the boards that were negative. This weekend, my daughter come down and visit me. We rented a room, B24. She called me when she got in the room and she said, Dad, there's a socket in the wall, it's got a plug broke off in it, meaning the plug of a cord. I said, okay. She goes, then there's another one, the socket that's out of the wall. So I called up that night because I figured that's a safety hazard and reported it to security. And my daughter left today and it's still not fixed. I called and asked to talk to whoever was running in charge of the fort today. And the young lady got back to me. She told me her name, but I don't know who it is. And I told her the problem. Huh?
Cassie.
Kathy. I said, well, okay. I told her what the problem was. And she said, well, I'll go over and look at it. And I'm sure she did. The bottom line is, I sat on the board and I had run through all the stuff that you guys did, complaints and stuff. When I got off the board, half my friends wouldn't talk to me. Anyway, I'm sure that'll be taken care of. And the only reason that I bring it up is because the ladies that are cleaning the rooms, and they do a fine job cleaning. You just gotta open their eyes up and see if there's any problems, and I told that to the lady. And I know you know the conversation I had with Kathy, but I wanted to bring it to the office that the young lady, I don't know Kathy, all right? And she was very complimentary and stuff like this. My daughter was really disappointed that we didn't have a pool. And I have made every meeting that they've had on the water conversation, except for one. And I've made comments about hiring a communication coordinator. I'd like to ask the board just a yes or no. Is that Miss Christine Bitters?
Yes, sir.
Personally, I'd like to apologize to you for the statement I made. I thought you was a volunteer, and so I opened my mouth up. I'm not afraid to speak my mind, but I'm not afraid to apologize either. And on the board here, it's a terrible job. When I sat on the board, you guys talk about the technology today.
Jason Long.
Jason, when I sat on the board, I worked a little bit with computers. We were operating under the DOS system. I got on the board in 2009, so you know how far behind we were. Boy, did I have trouble just trying to get them to start on it. That was in 2010 or 11, because I got off the board in 12. And I find out that this year's the first time we've been able to make reservations online. So we've made a little bit of progress. I made a statement when they talked about spending a bunch of money for eclipse event. It just sounded far-fetched to me, and I wasn't afraid to open my mind up on it. And that's all I gotta say. I try to be honest. If I feel I'm wrong, I'll apologize. If I feel I'm right, God help you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marlon.
Anybody else? Concerns?
We brought snacks. No, we didn't, but inspiration. No, you're.
Toy Mal, he's no good.
No.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so, Brittany, I'm sorry?
Who are you? Introduce yourself, please.
Brittany, did you get paid for all the work you did here for the board? Okay, so you're a professional recruiter. You went to all this trouble, checked out all these people out of the goodness of your heart for the port, and then got attacked for it. Is that correct?
Welcome in there.
Nice. That's really nice. Okay. I've known John since he was in eighth grade. He's the most honest guy you're ever going to meet. If John tells you it's going to rain, you better get an umbrella or you're going to get wet. We've got a good board here. They're a fresh new board. I think they're going to be pretty great. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. I first time ever here, born and raised here. I understand how the pool used to be, the raft, the high board, the low board, it's amazing. And first of all, I want to say thank y'all. I have never been here and I've never seen such a strong team, and thank you. And the same as what David Mann, I know the Wileys. I have nothing but amazing things to say about them. And I know them from God, I just do. And I have, yeah. And like David Mann said, if he says it's gonna rain,
Good golly, you better get an umbrella. But anyway, yes.
Will you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry, Pat Rodriguez. I born and raised here, and I live on the fort. And I just have 2 questions that I'd like to ask about loose dogs, animals. Number 1, is there a law, policy on loose dogs?
Yes, ma'am. Both in the CCNRs and in the rules and regs. They have to be restrained in a yard, behind a fence, on a chain or rope or leash.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, on a leash. Okay, so are there any consequences when they are not on a chain, behind a fence, coming into someone's personal yard? Is there anything that can be done?
Lisa, you want me to take that?
Sure.
Then I'll fill it.
Hi, Pat. I'm Frances Twitter, and I'm the head of architecture.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
That's what architecture is there for. If you've got loose dogs running around in your neighborhood, there's a complaint form online. You can get one up at the admin office, fill it out. You don't have to put who you are. We will never reveal who you are. Turn that into us, and we will investigate it. And if it is an issue, we will send them a violation letter. That gives them 30 days to do something about their dogs. If they don't, they're going to get a second violation and a $250 fine. And the fines will keep going up. So hopefully, with the first letter, they'll take care of their dogs.
Okay. And so what if I've done that and nothing has,
Have you filled out a complaint form?
I
But
filled
that has
it,
not gotten to us.
I filled it out with security. So
Okay,
is it different?
you need to address it to architecture.
Okay.
And we will take care of it.
Thank you. I was never told that. I appreciate it.
Yes.
What if you don't know who owns the dog? The dog was over in unit 15, but maybe he lives in unit 37.
We're gonna manage
We don't know.
people, ma'am. Because I've been going around the fort looking and seeing these dogs they belong. And sometimes I'll even throw a dog for a walk. They can come to where I find out where they're at. And let them at or
Richard's on architecture too. So.
Okay.
I want to continue, everyone is still reported to also security as well and the architecture committee.
Okay, so would that mean that they would have to go down to the person that is doing that, or do they just write it up?
It depends on the situation.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Okay.
architecture will send a notice, but security, if they know who the owner is, and sometimes that's a problem. By the time they get there, the dog is gone, they don't know who it belongs to or whatever, but they will go talk to him personally the
Okay.
first time.
And because I have videos every single day, and so should I send that with the report?
That'd be great.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
I will do that.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you for all that y'all do.
As much evidence as you can bring, the better.
I've got it. You're my attorney. Thank y'all.
I have a quick question. I'm Katie Brown. And all of us have had pets that get away occasionally. I understand that. That's not a problem. But what means do we have to enforce collection of these fines? Fine to someone for something, but how do we enforce the collection of that fine?
Up to now, it's my understanding that the monies, let's say for example, they fine you and you get your letter and told that you owe $100. If you don't pay it, then it'll be part of your record indefinitely.
So
That's the current, that's that right now.
So when you sell your property, that would be a lien against your property.
So if I die there, then it doesn't make any difference, right?
Well, you're.
Someone's gonna sell the property.
And part of the problem is the HOA law, it is very difficult. There's a lot of steps you have to go through to get to that, point, yeah.
It is an issue that needs to be addressed, and don't know the answer right now, but this is a thought that occurred to me before when I heard someone say, well, if they dump their trash illegally and there's a sign that says there's a $500 fine, everybody kind of shrugged their shoulders and says, well, so what? They're never going to pay it. I believe there is an enforcement method available. I just don't know what it is yet, but I'm glad you brought the question because it is something that I think needs to be addressed so that we have teeth in the threat
Exactly,
to enforce the payment of those fines.
exactly. Thank you.
I think some counties, I'm not 100% sure on this, but due to some of these dog things, I've been trying to do a little bit of reading about it. I think some of the larger, more populated counties with large HOAs, if you have an aggressive dog, they'll actually just come get the dog from you. It's not your choice. They're taking your dog and they hold the dog for 24 hours and then they bring it back. And that's kind of most people are going to get pretty upset by that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that our
It's a
county has
quagmire.
any rules at all.
Right. So I don't know. I don't think our county has any rules for having a aggressive dog in the confiscation procedure or detainment procedure or whatever. So we may. It's a quagmire. I mean, obviously, you can find them all day, but it is complicated.
There may be a provision in the state health code that would require law enforcement to intervene. So what Memo just mentioned to me, and I think he's exactly right. Call the sheriff's department. I'm not saying that you're going to get an immediate response. I'm not going to say pro or con, but it's certainly another option.
Well, I understand dogs are gonna get loose. I mean, yeah, we've had dogs, it happens. You know, I don't have a problem with that. Usually the owner will contact security and say, has anyone seen, my dog? And then they'll go get it. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I'll go out and help find the dog. My question was in regards to the fines.
And yeah, the habitual.
Right.
Yeah. And I know that Matt has really ramped up about the dogs. That they've really been on, sending out the warnings and putting out the notice. And sometimes that's all it takes. It's when we don't say anything that,
Right.
exactly. Yeah. So
Thank you.
And real quickly, your question. I actually had a text from Sheriff Baratico that told me that next time I see the dog, that I need to shoot it. Unfortunately, you're probably gonna have to shoot it. And I have a text from him. It's a shame that I now walk around with my gun. Fearful, but yes, that should not be my.
Well, you can do whatever is necessary under the circumstances to defend yourself, maybe to destroy it.
There's a bunch of them, so I'm just gonna go through them. I'm Chris Race, I was on the former board and left on May 31st.
We can't hear you.
My letter was posted on May 31st for my resignation. Dog issue, I sent an email to the board and to Matt on June 2nd. I heard back from Matt. I did not hear anything from the board. Now all of a sudden, we've got some kind of policy in place where we're.
Well, we instructed him to call you, to respond to you. We instructed him to respond to you.
That's fine, I'll trust it that you did that.
Can I address just one thing about that? We have been without a general manager, as you well know, Mr. Grace. The burden has been on primarily Lisa and the board to deal with the day-to-day issues. But as far as I'm concerned, I really don't think the board should respond to a question like that. That is up to the department manager, whether it's a dog problem or somebody else. The board of directors is not, under the normal circumstances, responsible for responding to issues like that.
The board is currently the general manager.
I understand that.
Okay, I take it, I understand it. But that was on June 2nd. About 5 weeks later, there was a report that there was a bit, someone bitten. And all of a sudden it was a big issue. And then a couple weeks later, another dispatch goes out, oh, take care of your loose dogs, make sure they're contained. No, that needs to be more often than that, because we see them on a regular basis. Jim rides his bike all over the fort, and he has been approached by dogs on a regular basis. And the one that came at me was vicious, and his owner had a hard time getting control of him. And it was scary, very scary. I had my poles with me, so I planted them in front of me just to protect themselves. All right. Property tax protest, did anything come out of that?
We got some concessions, yes,
Okay.
from what they
From the
had,
big ones or?
from the big ones, yes.
Okay.
Would
Uh,
you like me to talk?
Yeah, I would.
That is a phenomenal question.
I was part of that team that put it together.
I was kind of forgotten about that. Brittany, correct me if I say this wrong. In the process of protesting our own taxes, it's like I'd have to go back and find the law.
23.
I had to go back and find the law. Anyway, in the process of that, my wife found the law that basically says, and I'll explain it to you very simply. It says that you cannot be double taxed in an HOA. The law specifically states property owners organizations, HOAs. Okay? What that means is that when you go into a property like this and you have a pool, a golf course, the post theater, the adult center, all that stuff, your dues paid for that to exist and for it to be maintained. The prices of the houses on the fort are worth more money than the prices in town. They're worth more money because people are willing to pay more money, because we live in a capitalistic society, to then have access to all of these amenities. For as long as we can tell, all of the common property on the fort has been taxed at its same rate as all other property on the fort. So ask yourself the question. If you're already being taxed that you own that has access to the pool, but yet the pool is valued at $186,000. The adult center, I don't remember these exactly, but the adult center, $200,000 or $300,000. The post theater, $300,000. These numbers are astronomical when in every other HOA in the country, a pool is generally $2 to $20. Why? Because y'all are already paying the taxes for the pool. So yes, we have
So we had a good argument.
we have an egregious situation going on right now where, in just my opinion, this is just my opinion of me reading the law and talking to a tax lawyer. But it would be my opinion that we have been overtaxed on all common property for the existence of this law for approximately 10 years since it became law. We have been overtaxed. We don't even know. It could be $1 million we've been overtaxed as an association. We don't know. And we cannot retroactively go and get any of that tax money because tax offices are Tony may know the rule, the deal, but they're a standalone entity. Like, you can sue the government, but you can't sue the tax office. Okay? So.
And you can't get a refund.
And you can't get a refund. So we are going to eat crow this year. And the amount of money, I don't know. My clock,
I just know some of them were.
$60,000, $80,000 that we're going to eat.
1,000% over what they were last year.
Yeah, we're going to eat a lot of crow this year in our taxes. But our plan as a board is to, in October, through a tax lawyer, to start negotiating this contract out. And hopefully, our common property can get where it needs to get. And next year, we can reduce our taxes by the same amount that it's overburdened this year. And then so in 2 years from now, we would be at that lower tax rate and we would have a surplus of what we've been spending on taxes for years. Because like the hotel needs to be taxed at a normal rate, right? It's not an amenity, it's a business. The administration office, I don't know. I don't, there's some interpretation here that I don't understand. But we have been overtaxed for a very long time and we're very aware of it.
All right, just as long as it is.
Yeah, no.
followed
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, no, we,
That was a lot of work on Alan's part. And
Yes,
Yeah.
and he was
No.
100% right,
Yeah.
100%
He
right.
was. He was.
And I wish 10 years ago that we'd have gotten it right, and that's not anybody's fault that's sitting here today.
but on the major, the big ones
The
that
big
were
ones?
done, that we got the concessions on those.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Brush pickup. You stated brush is being picked up. Where's it going?
It's going to the 400 acres and it's being stockpiled. However, there's been complications because we haven't had a backhoe.
And how can we burn?
We can't burn right now. No.
All right,
So-
question. Have you considered getting a big chipper, either renting it or adding it to our equipment list? Creating mulch out of our stuff as you go through the streets,
Yes.
stockpiling it by the landfill and mixing it with whatever dirt's gonna be on the overburden.
Yes, and that's all been discussed with Philip. I think Memo and Philip have actually, talked about that in the manager meetings.
Because we wind up doing the whole.
So
triple
our
work.
problem is, right, we have just more information and stuff that we've done currently. We just approved, we can say that, right? What we approved as far as. Okay, we just approved $20,000, up to $20,000 for the two backhoes that we've had for 15 years to be fixed. One's been sitting for over 2 years and the other one's been broke down for several months and it needs roughly $10,000 in work. The problem with the brush pickup has been that we haven't had a mechanism to pick it up because both of these machines have been broke down and it cost us $3,000 a month to rent a backhoe.
And we do still have a dump truck, but we don't have a garbage truck.
That's correct. The garbage truck has been in the shop for like pretty close to a month and they can't figure out what's wrong with it. There's either a wiring harness issue but something is not talking computer wise from the computer to the transmission to the engine. Everything's confused and it will not work properly. They're trying to figure it out.
We have old vehicles. All right, I did the loose dogs. I really highly recommend adding that to the agenda monthly about loose dogs, keeping them contained, saying that you will be fined, and yes, there will be consequences.
We
And just do it every single month
Agreed.
from the board meeting.
When does that go into effect? When does that if it's like the second or third, that they get fined? I mean,
It's always,
It's the rule.
I think the rule has been there
but
forever.
it's always been in effect. I mean, that's Mrs. Bitter.
The notice probably went out after my email on June 2nd when we responded to you. Would be my guess. And that stirred it up. So it's fine. It's being taken care of. Accounting firm, is that still in place? Are we done with our account?
Well, he's currently working on the 2022, the tax return's almost ready to go. And then we'll be able to start the audit.
Okay, is he gonna start 23?
He's already started 23.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, he's up to date with 23.
Okay, and that's what he was working. I'm sorry. I tend to move a lot. Is that better? ERC money, that was done by the employees, not by the board. I was on the board when that ERC came through. We did nothing on that. That was Julie that brought it to Alan's attention and the employees that brought the ERC money to us,
So
not us.
I have a problem with that train of thought from an employer standpoint of my own position. This is the way I think about that. And what you're saying is not wrong in a sense, but the membership kept paying their dues, which then made the association have the bankroll to pay their payroll. So if the membership had stopped paying their dues, we would have had no money to pay payroll. The only reason that there's ERC money is because everybody kept paying their dues. COVID is God's work. It is what it is. And it had a domino effect in our society that got the government obviously to put this money into certain funds, and it was attainable through whatever. But that company headhunted the fort.
Yes.
The company came here and said, hey, you've got 50 employees plus. Would you like to be for us to put in for this money? If the fort stopped employing those people, they would have never gotten ERC money. So from an employer standpoint, I think the members, for continuing to pay their dues, But this idea that somehow that money belongs to the employees,
That's not
to
what I
me, that
said.
doesn't make any sense.
All I said was the grunt work was done by the employees,
Oh, well, yeah.
not by the board.
Sure, yeah,
That's it.
yeah. And we give him
Well,
credit to
we
Julie.
gave Julie,
We
just
applauded
now,
her.
just before you said that the ERC money came through because of the board. I was on the board when that ERC money, yes, you did.
We approved for it to go forward as a board. That's what our role was.
We already thanked Julie for that in
Okay,
the
that's
revealing
fine.
of the
That's
ERC
fine.
money.
It's done, fine.
Yeah.
The positions we're in now, if you go through all those files that I started sorting, you will see that our history has repeated itself over 50 years.
Yes.
Repeatedly.
Isn't that what they all tell us?
I found it, evidence of it. The 1977 GM was harassed by the board and he quit. It's repeated. That's our history, 50 years worth. It's all in those files. If anybody wants them, get permission from Lisa to go see them. The files are there. There are sticky notes on the outside of the drawers that give you the basis of what's in there. That's it. That's as far as I got. Just I was a volunteer.
So how many GMs we had and how many of them been running town?
I got the whole list.
Do you have a total of how many?
I'd have to.
Just one.
Yes, I have it. I have whole.
Ms. Ray, since you're claiming, you're making a claim that this board, or any board is responsible for that. You're making all the GMs seem like they were saints. They were human beings. They had flaws, they had good points. And unfortunately, the most recent GM had a few flaws, and we can lay it all out if everybody wants it. But he's gone. He's gone. Well, no, but you mentioned.
Resigned, no.
No, you
All I
mentioned.
said is it has repeated itself over 50 years.
And he quit.
The same issues.
He quit. He voluntarily left on his own.
That's fine. So review the files. QuickBooks. You're talking about new tech. You're sticking with QuickBooks, right?
Not suggested another option for the county.
Okay, because QuickBooks is easily found by anyone that needs training on it. You know, staff can go.
To our knowledge, the new GM has a QuickBooks Ninja.
And that's
who has
fine.
redone many companies.
And that's perfect.
Their QuickBooks in many different ways,
And
and
that's
hopefully that will be fantastic.
He can elaborate the problems that were happening under our board for over a year regarding Concierge Plus and QuickBooks.
I believe it.
Stuff was purposely ignored for whatever reason under the former GM's
Okay,
purview.
that's fine.
He discovered it, and now we've discovered more things.
That's fine. I was brought into concierge at the very last minute. I attended one meeting, phone meeting, and found out that concierge could talk to QuickBooks. No, QuickBooks could talk to concierge, but not the other way around. So all the information had to be in QuickBooks. And then you could get the emails and the names and all that stuff.
Check
into
records.
concierge.
Basically,
So I'm not
if
sure.
the data in QuickBooks was structured in a reflexive relationship in the customer
With the
table,
parent.
with each unit, not unit like unit two, like each unit, like each resident, and then underneath that residence, they had owners. So each owner could have multiple residences, but the way it's in Concierge Plus at this moment was just the way the black system is. It's just an old flat data structure, so when I go in there, there's like 25 accounts for me, and 25 ways to log in, and 25 things to choose from, and everything's duplicated many, many times. And that's, if we go with that, we're gonna have to dump everything out of there and start over.
And that
So
does
we're
not
talking
make
about
sense.
hundreds of man hours of data in there that really potentially.
Just knowing what I asked about, I forget the guy's name. Anyway, from concierge, if we had everything in QuickBooks, we could get it into.
You could manage the owners and what units they own.
Because you've
through-
already
through
got- yeah.
QuickBooks.
I've got a residence.
Yeah.
That's my parent. My main parent is unit 37. Under that, there are children. We call them babies. And, so that's what's lot. So each one has a residence and a lot, residence lot. I have 2 lots, 3 lots, 4 lots, whatever, but they're all structured that way. Let's see. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Great questions.
Whatever it is.
Good evening.
I'm Linda O'Brien. I just wanted to respond to. I just wanted to respond to a comment that you made in the beginning, because I thought it was unfair. And you and I have had numerous conversations generated by yourself, generated by me, back and forth. At the beginning, it was an attempt to get to know each other, to see if we could work and figure out where we were going.
While you're still on the board.
Correct.
Yes.
I don't understand about the underhanded thing. I mean, I think that's totally.
I don't think
unfair.
that you're being underhanded. I'm not saying that. You're the messenger, and that's what I was trying to point out. I don't think that you were being.
I have participated in this letter that went to you because I felt there was a need. You were a new board. I remember what it was like to be new, and that it would be helpful with regard to some of the big things that are looming. Maybe Lisa knows about them. She's been around, certainly Memo, but the other three of you don't. As far as the budget, if we don't have a budget, then we're gonna have more difficulties with the accountant. And then the accountant won't do the budget. And then without a budget, we're gonna have a problem with going forward with the audit. Without audits, without an auditor and an audit, we don't get, payment, but I can't think of the word I want, you know what I mean? We don't get, what is it we don't get, guys, if we don't have an audit? Is it we won't get, where we get money, like we did the big one, that was, we don't get grants.
Yeah.
So without, I mean, and it's become very obvious in the past 2 or 3 years that grants are something we really need. You guys are looking for employees to make a difference to your board. We need somebody who can learn to do a grant. Now, the county has 2 women, which you all know, and they were sort of floating around 4 or 5 years ago, and now are very established with the county. Whether or not they have the time to work with us is my first question. And the second one is, if they don't, do they know someone else in the area that could? Because there's a lot of grant money out there, and God knows we could use it.
And Mr. Hill and I've spoken quite a bit about that. We would
Paul-
all agree, yeah.
The lady that helped Travis, I don't know her name.
Annabelle.
Is Annabelle still here and willing to do that? And your wife, your wife's another one.
Annabelle's
She
relocated.
Property.
Let me stop you though and clarify the record. For the record, I'm sorry, Linda, you were the messenger. You're the one that called me and said these meetings, I would like to attempt to set up these meetings. You did not.
It was, you and I were bouncing ideas around. What if we did this? What if we
You
did
did
that?
not put the message to me as though you were the author of the message. So that, just to clarify, and I'm sorry that I didn't clarify that.
Well,
When I'm talking, sometimes maybe I go a little quick.
Well, I just want you to know that I tried, and it just
If
didn't look
you
like
ask
it was
these
gonna
two right
work.
here, I have nothing but good things to say about you, and
So-
I apologize if you thought otherwise.
Anyway, so, I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy that you're motivated, because you need to be. And you need to have a lot of patience. So if me as a person can help you, I will, to an extent. I've sort of come semi-retired and I think, you're in trouble. Anyway, so anyway, I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Claudette Longoria, I'm the Executive Director for the estate of Delia Smith. Thank you for cleaning up the unit, on Unit 3. It's only taken 9 years to get done. Plus, the question I have is that same day, it was being shown to a potential buyer, both houses, It was locked, and security and an admin staff let the gentleman go through the window. Not only that, but it's been used for things, and it's trashed and rodents are coming out of it. So I can't believe that two of our staff used no sense to let a potential buyer go through the window of a house when they didn't have the padlock key, because I explained to them one of the doors was popped off and we were trying to secure it because one of the staff was across the street residents prior to her employment at the fort. And I explained to them that that gentleman needed a breathing apparatus. Not only that, but if he had sliced his foot or something would have happened, the liability could have been, or injury or worse could have happened. And they ignored me. And I asked to speak to Matt, and I was told verbatim, Matt's tied up with a woman and we'll get back to you. And no one's gotten back to me. So I have fencing because there was later people still today that have been going in and out of that property that I'll donate if they can secure it. Because the windows, your security staff just popped open the window and let the gentleman go through. So it's very, it's still a problem. Board owns it, both properties. I helped that day, the maintenance clear stuff out, and the other residents to secure their window because their windows were also broken prior to that, and they're elderly. So I think there's some ongoing issues that are not being resolved. Aesthetically, they could look pleasing, but there's some underlining serious legalities behind it. So I wanted just to address that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm fine, thank you. My name's John Ludlam. I'm an outsider because I moved here July the 31st. So somebody suggested, you know, if you want to know what's going on the board, you need to go to a board meeting. They said, take your gun, your knife. I'd like to talk about new beginnings. I'm 80 years old. And every day can be a new beginning if you have an optimistic attitude and if you want to look at things through a positive filter. Tony and I have worked together on murder cases. We've known each other from the District and County Attorneys Association when I was an investigator with the prosecutor's office. Jason invited me to come to a Los Morris Creek Water Board meeting, which I did, which was very informative and interesting. New beginnings mean new opportunities, new ideas, new ways to change things. What I've seen tonight is people finally communicating with each other, putting some barriers down, opening up dialogue and discussion. You have a relatively new board. You may have old board members, you may have new board members, I don't know. But what it looks like to me as an outsider and being part of the community now is that there are real possibilities for change in the way that things have happened. And change has to come from within each one of us. We have to present a positive attitude. We have to give it a chance. We have to give it a shot. Everything's not going to get done immediately. Everything's not going to get done instantly. But it seems like we have an energetic board here who wants to try to get things done in a positive manner. We have a new general manager. I think maybe the idea we ought to try to support him as best we can, as long as he's got an open door and an open mind. Last thing I want to say is I got a friend from Montana who called me and said, you moved to Brackettville, Texas out on the desert. And I said, yeah, I guess I did. But I'd lived in Del Rio for 20 years at one time. I said, are you glad you moved? I thought about it a minute. I said, last night I laid in bed and I looked out and there was this huge blue, beautiful moon. And coming from Fort Worth, Texas, one of the 4 fastest growing cities in the United States, I saw this beautiful moon. I saw no buildings. I saw no city lights. I heard no traffic. Stay in Montana. Go back to school. So thank you for an opportunity to make observations, and I think this looks like a very good beginning for Fort Clark Springs, and I'm proud to be part of it. Thank you.
Well,
It's still light outside. Do we not have any?
I don't want to have to come up there. I have a big voice. Hopefully you can hear it. You're not on TV. I would like, y'all mentioned things that needed to be addressed by the architectural committee. We have a community council that there is never anybody at the meetings.
State your name.
Oh, I'm Marsha. Well, I don't all did it. Marsha Kaufman. And I really am not, I'm a renter now. I'm not a lot owner. But, so I've been relieved of my secretarial duties. But we did never have anybody come to the community council meetings. And I would like you all to address what the purpose, so everybody will know what the purpose of the community council is, because everything's not on the board. There are things in place to help this place run smoothly, and so it's not just on y'all's backs to do all this. Anyway, if y'all would explain community council, that's my point.
Have a hard time explaining it, and I was president at one point. Yes, ma'am.
Should have brought material. Community council.
You gotta introduce yourself.
Oh, Barbara McFadden, currently the president of the community council. And when I first moved here, I think you've all heard this before maybe, I didn't know that by buying a piece of property, you became a member of the community council. Because I came to a meeting and I sat somewhere out there and someone handed me a piece of paper and said, we're voting on this issue. I don't know that I belong here to begin with. What are we voting for, and how did I get a voting right? Now, I don't know if you guys had that similar experience, but somebody should have told me that. But anyway, I found out that day that I was a member, a voting member. And so if you have property, you are a voting member of community council. We will have our first meeting. We've been on a hiatus for the summer, September the 9th, 10 o'clock, right here. We have an agenda that'll be posted. Christina is posting our agenda. If you have something that you would like to bring to community council, you can contact me through Christina if you'd like, and we can add that to the agenda. Okay? Well, the way I see community council is that it's a place less formal than a board meeting. We actually have a board of directors, and it gets a little confusing whether you're talking about the Fort Clark Springs Association Board or you're talking about the Community Council Board. So we're set up along the same lines. We are tell me what it is, 501c3, and we do a lot of activities. Our primary goals are spelled out in our bylaws and the Constitution that we have, just like this board has. Those are online. Anybody can read them. Our goals are preservation, education,
promoting the fort and enabling the members to bring concerns or ideas to a place less formal than a regular board meeting. Kind of a testing ground maybe for some ideas. If you were to say, let's have a community garden. You could come to community council and see if there was support for that, rather than just saying to a board member, we're going to start a community garden. Community council is the place where those details would be worked out. And then if community council, which was everybody in the room voting, says, yes, let's take that to the board. We would have a committee who would have a plan for a community garden, a detailed plan, all back, bring it to the board, present it as a package. Does that maybe say thank you? Does that make sense? No, I don't even know if community garden is practical, but that was my example. Because I also work at the recycling center. I volunteer there. We could use some of that compost, right? We could create something. But instead of just coming here and saying to the board at a regular board meeting, I want us to do a community garden, it wouldn't be brought to you unless the community really wanted it. It would take more than 3 or 4 people coming. I don't know if that's making any sense.
Sure it is.
Okay.
A lot of sense.
Okay. Because someone asked me, well, what is the purpose of community council? And that's what I think it is. We operate more on a consensus. If there's a member present in that meeting who said, here's an idea, I move that I'm going to stay with my community garden, okay? I move that we create a committee to explore a community garden. The discussion starts then. It doesn't even have to wait for a second like it does in a regular meeting. It's more a consensus of the members that are in the room. So if you're not in the room and you don't like a decision that community council has made, that's kind of on you.
Yeah.
Right? If you didn't vote against it, and 90% of the people in the room want it, you should have been there. Plain and simple, okay? We do have an opening for the secretary of the community council board. And on the 9th, we will be taking the nominations from the floor. And if you want to serve, it's filling out a term that will expire next year, as will mine. Marcia, where are you? Marcia and I were both elected to fill out unexpired terms. So.
Before I left home this afternoon, my wife suggested to me that I take a very short list of things that she would like to recommend. And I said, honey, you need to go to community council. And she said, okay, I will. So
I've had people on Facebook say, I can take my concerns to the board. Why should I take them to community council? And I've tried to explain it in that general, we're partners because every one of you belongs to community council.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there has been a time when board members didn't come to community council. It was kind of like them and us. And there is no them and us. There's just us. Okay? So if you feel the call to be the secretary, we meet 9 months out of the year. So there's 9 meetings. So there you go. Anybody have any questions? Marcia was a real good secretary. Actually, she's a prime volunteer. And the reason Marcia could no longer serve was because in reading our bylaws, she has to own property. And she owned property for years. Well, and I owned it when I was elected. Yes, when she was elected, she owned the property. And she sold the property and became a renter. And she showed up at my house. She showed up at my house with her letter of resignation, which I hated to receive, but I have it. And she had a little R on her shirt.
Was it red?
It was red. She had a red R. And we joked about maybe she needed to have it on her forehead because I tell you what, if all of our renters were like Marcia, well, she's a prime example of a good citizen of our community, whether she's a renter or not. Someone had a question. No. Okay.
Thank you.
Saturday, second Saturday of each month. My name's Pat Stephenson, and everybody's gonna love this.
Got my pen.
Speeding. Speeders. They go, I don't know how fast they're going. Well, I went out in my Ranger and I clocked one. 5. Now, I really shouldn't complain because everybody needs a good laugh. My husband, so sometimes it's good to speed, but I sure wish we could get it fixed before somebody gets hurt, and I'm all for speed bumps. So if we can bring that up so I don't have to keep complaining about it, because my husband says I should have given you a ticket years ago. He took away my Firebird. I'm driving a car. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Believe it or not, that has been a subject of some discussion with my boss and I about how and what needs to be done to enforce speed limits on Fort Clark Springs. And there's a specific method of achieving that. It was suggested to me that some attempts might have been made previously. My boss is Brent Smith, the county attorney, and it was suggested to him that there may have been some attempt by the previous county attorney, but we have not been able to find any documentation of that. But I think it's important, particularly on the major thoroughfares.
Somebody's gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
See if we could just have a 5-minute.
If I can run.
Okay, or you can go on without me. Yeah, I'm good with that too. Yeah.
Since you're on a break, I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
What you just talked about. There is an agreement. I'll call you. Then you'll have my. Thank you.
Second.
I'm sorry. I thought you were. Sorry.
Go back.
Yeah. Establish. Yes. I'll ask you. Some members have Yeah. Can we start for the room for 1 minute? 1 minute, please. So, anybody just want to come up and share your concerns? But what?
I just want to remind everybody that Seminole Days is coming up in September, from Friday, September 15th, Seminole Days. And that's when all the descendants come to town, and there's a lot of new ones that have never been here and have never seen where their family has served or have been in camp. So I was going to suggest, after doing some due diligence in the past, it's Friday, September 15th through Sunday, September 17th. And the only participation that the fort has done in the past was the parade. So in addition to the parade, I was thinking this would be an amazing opportunity to take advantage to have a Fort Clark booth, because it's an all-day event on Saturday, to sell memberships, hotel, invite them about the hotel, hunting, but also maybe donate a raffle basket to them as a giveaway or a door prize. But also when we do like the ghost tours, it would be really nice because a lot of the descendants rent out the Airbnbs or the hotels, or they stay with family, that we could do a tour like we do with the ghost tour, because a lot of people don't know the history, and this is the first time that they've been here. So it'd be actually, since the pool's not workable.
Spring.
Yes. If we can try to figure out something, even to have some signage that we could use annually, because there's never been signage for the past few years. And that, as a descendant, is really humiliating, because our likeness and our story is keeping this place sustainable. And I would really like to have a switch where we're invited and everybody's invited and there's property and they want, and maybe this is an opportunity where we show them slides and have a community where the Fort Clark members get engaged and participate and go see what Seminole Days and see the museum that we have. It's completely different than the Fort Clark Museum, but then also invite the past comers and newcomers to come to the museum here at the fort. So I think this would be a great opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question. Where can we get more information?
I'll send it to the board. There is Seminole, it's called the Seminole Indian Scout Cemetery Association. But the Carver School, if anybody's familiar with town, where the 5 Points, where D&D is, if you go down to where a restaurant is called Manita's, it's family members of mine, take a right, there's a Carver School, that is the black schoolhouse, and right there is the museum. And they have we have Facebook, but you also, there's a website, and then I can send the board information, and they would be, if they could pass it along to everybody, where you can see the times, and there's not many families still here, but there is. And we continue to have, unfortunately, passing away of members who are also affiliated and stuff, so it'd be really great. And also, that's the weekend of the 40th anniversary of our golf course that my grandparents built. So there's a lot going on, and it would be really great if all the members could participate.
I want to introduce myself. I am Marley Parks. I am the new Events and Recreations Director. I would absolutely love to work with you to get something done. Do with me after the meeting. I will get all of your contact info, and we will definitely plan something. Also, if anybody has any questions, concerns, I would absolutely love to meet all of you. If you have any event ideas, any recreation ideas, please let me know. I will gladly sit down with all of you. If I can't find an answer, or if I don't know the answer, I'll find one. Sure, I come up with something. And the board has had my back since I have been here, and I greatly appreciate everything they have done for me, but please reach out. Anyone.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for having the best town hall meeting I've ever been to. And I think if anybody in the audience disagrees, then they better really rethink yourself. But
Curtis Benham? Yes. I'm not, these aren't notes. So I
got worried.
No, I just wanted to say thank you to the board for treating us like adults and not having security in the back. It was nice to be,
That was only for you, Curtis.
Well, you treat us like adults, and everybody's acted like adults, and I think that's good. And some of this stuff is difficult, and people are very wedded to their ideas on both sides, and sometimes we assign motive or we assign malice when none is intended. So I hope we will keep talking, and everybody will keep working and trying to move together forward. I did have a quick question, and that is, this meeting is open to all residents, whether they own property or not, right?
Yes.
Is the board meeting open to anybody who wants to attend, whether they're a resident or not?
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want to double check that. Thanks.
It's a public meeting.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, that's what I was asking.
I don't see why not.
No,
No, they can attend. Anyone can attend.
excuse me.
I come up here all smiles.
Hold on a second. Garland. Garland. Thank you. Yeah, Garland, thank you.
He's getting take back. No, Garland just has this big voice. I'm Sandy Hagan. And since you tied me to the whipping post tonight, I wanted to explain a few things. First of all, I have no idea what you were talking about in this telephone conversation.
No, I didn't say,
You did mention my name.
that's not what that's not what I was told.
Yeah, well, I'm just letting you know personally. You know, I'll admit to my involvement, but when I'm not involved, I don't want to be blamed for it.
Well,
Okay, so anyway, I wanted to explain that perception is everything. Don't forget that the four of us who sent this letter are members like all of you guys are. But since we're former directors, we do have a little bit of a different slant on things. And we didn't mean to show any disrespect for the five of you that are sitting here. We have no plans, nor did we ever discuss with anyone creating a special election committee for removal of any board member. That has never come up in any of our discussions. So if you have heard that, it is a rumor, and I can't even tell you where it's coming from. Huh?
I'm just doing my voice.
Oh, we just wanted to basically wake up the board. We've all served. We thought maybe we're missing some things. And we weren't getting a really good response when we offered to consult on things that had been done. Rumors, we did have a lot of references, but to give out the names of those references would have violated confidentiality. And we weren't about to get any employees or any members on the list. So we were just being very cautious.
so I have a question.
Sure, absolutely.
Do you keep your rights as a board member to information once you leave the board?
Absolutely. In fact, you still have a signed confidentiality agreement unless somebody has thrown it out. We don't share.
So, are we the president of the United States? I don't understand that. I would assume, I don't know, but I would assume once I leave the board, I'm not privileged to any of this information.
Well, we don't have any current information.
What do you mean?
I mean, I don't know what you do in executive session.
You just said that you received a whole bunch of information from sources.
Not from executive session.
But
Not that
no, my point would be is that
No, we talked to members, checked
I know you talked with Julie.
other members. We talked with employees who have resigned.
I know you talked with Julie. She's currently employed.
I talked to Julie.
And
So
so
I think-
as a board member, you just said, there's
Julie-
really no way we can spin this. You just said that you're accountable to these rules because you haven't signed
That's
confidentiality.
absolutely true. And
So
the
you
only
have, you're
thing-
held accountable to the code of ethics. So
Well,
you took information from you took information.
okay, now wait a minute, Don. I'm up here voluntarily.
I know.
And we have
But
not shared
I don't think
any,
everybody's getting all the facts here.
well, I'm not sure. Let me finish.
Okay, sure.
We created the evil four of us were involved in this. Now, for some reason, you aimed your ire at me to start with. The reason I was first on the list is because Hagen's first in alphabetical order, just to let you know. Anyway, we had a couple of employees who resigned, who came to us. Yes, you said we should have dealt directly with you, but also, when I gave you the opportunity, please ask if you have questions, what specific things you accused of lying, which we did not do. And we did not send everything, we sent it to a few select individuals. But all the stuff that's been discussed tonight probably should have been on agendas, like what you guys were doing with our health insurance and our commercial package program, what you were doing with the budget, the status of the landfill. Because the last time we heard from you, we had problems with the landfill. So I just wanted to respond that we tried to do was a wake-up call. And it's unfair to all four of us to just blame us for trying to take you down. That is not at all what we're trying to do. We've offered to service consulting. I mean, you've got 3 brand new people on here that need to learn what it is to be a director. And we were trying to help. So, anyways.
I just want to say really quickly, I struggle with the fact though that in your words just now, you said you wanted to wake us up.
Yes.
There's a lot of assumptions that things were not happening that were happening. And as busy as we are as a board and trying to take care of everything and hire a GM, we haven't had time to, I mean, because I'm all for communication. I ran on communication and we've been trying to push out everything we can. But health insurance isn't until September. We're in August.
We're not talking about health insurance only. We're talking about the commercial package as well.
You mean the liability and all that?
That's called a commercial insurance package. That's what I did for 39 years.
And that is all.
Sounds like you're being a bit condescending.
Well, I'm not really talking. Okay,
You know,
all right.
You know, there's day-to-day business that needs to be handled by a general manager who comes and reports to the board. The general manager walked out on all of you members in May. Walked out.
We know.
Left things undone. Not only did he leave things undone, but he did things that he was not accountable for. I personally, before I ever got on this board, I made 6 attempts to either sit down and talk to him or get him to call me on the phone. The man never responded to me.
I have no control over that.
I know you don't. I know you don't, but
Lisa
do you
just spent
understand?
time, you guys just spent time explaining the legality of the board president stepping in as general manager.
And you don't agree with that?
Yes and no.
That's what the bylaws say.
I know. We've been through. Look, I only came up here to try and explain to you that we weren't looking on you as evil people. He started it with trying to drag my name through this. I'm not the only one. We had members come to us and ask us for help. So what we did is we thought we'd cover those things that we saw. Now I should probably, I didn't.
I have to say to you that my reading of the email was nothing but heaping criticism on this board.
I can understand that. I probably shouldn't have come back up to try to justify or try to explain or try to clarify some issues, but that's okay, I'm done.
It's okay, we appreciate your civility.
I'm going. My name is Leila Robbins, and I'm a member. I didn't get one of those letters, and I don't even care about all that. It's just childness as far as I'm concerned. What I'm more concerned about is we pay due. The gentleman that just moved here talked about how nice and peaceful it is. Well, he's right, it used to be like that. But if you come over where I live, there's no peace at all. And you know where I live, and you know there's no peace at all. I deal with drug addicts, in and out all night long. I live by 2 drug houses that are right in the neighborhood. I deal with loose dogs constantly that I have to change my walking patterns because I can't walk where me and my best friend usually walk because of loose dogs that try to attack us. That's my main concern. Now I need clarification on 2 things. Children, what is the age for children driving on golf carts? Here on the fort.
You have to have a driver's license.
You have to have a driver's license.
Or be with an adult with a
That's
driver's
what I
license.
understood too. So, second thing is, what is the ruling for parking on the street in Unit 15?
I'd have to look at the CCNO.
Well, I do believe overnight parking is not acceptable. I believe that's in the bylaws, but I'm not positive. So we need to make sure of that because we have a renter that parks and blocks both of our driveways. It's always a fight. And they're not supposed to park there. And then my last concern is the common property behind my house. I've taken my riding lawnmower back there for years, tried to clean it up. Now with the mosquito, it's so bad, I don't want to check my lawnmower. Since you got rid of the contractor that used to go back there, what, that was 5 years ago, 4 years ago?
3 years ago.
They haven't done it, it's fine. Haven't done it, I don't. But I pay my dues every month.
What unit?
I'm in unit 15.
There's a chapter, right?
And then we have the people that use the common ground as a driveway. In and out. The REA box has been knocked over, what, 4 times, 5 times?
Well, I
But
think
it's okay.
we've already kind of dealt with some of those issues, so I think if you bring that complaint to our architectural committee, then that resident driving in or out, they're gonna have to they're gonna get fined for driving using green spaces and easement,
Okay.
ingress, egress.
Okay.
And once that happens, then it's gonna come to us.
So that's all they have to say.
Or,
I'm
you know,
not trying to be ugly.
I'm glad you did.
You know what?
That's what we're
I've
doing.
lived here a long time. It used to be so peaceful, and it's just not anymore. And that's sad because I pay you guys a lot of money to live here. I could pay that money someplace else to live in misery,
Right.
you know? And I do like it.
Yes,
So thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Ma'am, unit 15, there's no, everything has to be off street.
Amen.
So
Thank you.
please send us a complaint of which houses.
I took it to the office a year ago and
Would you
nothing
please
got
do
done.
another one?
And the
We're
guy
a new
lives there
committee and we're on.
every night.
Okay.
Not just one.
So we bring it to where? Our
Architecture.
Okay, thank you.
We will send you a letter.
We'll send the motorcycle.
Can I clarify?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanna, I'm sad to see that Sandy has left. She watches it on, the video. Some of the problem that we've had, and this is, who all this has been done by, we don't know, okay? We understand that the employees are upset and that they're scared. We get all of that. And, we sympathize with that, and I absolutely don't want anybody to work in that environment. And so I think what has contributed to that environment is the fact that when they have brought a complaint to a specific person, like Mrs. Hay, best you can do, just do your job and be as nice as you can be, whatever. Just be calm, patient, and try to let them work through these issues. The message has been, well, I mean, I can't verbatim state the message, but you see the results. It's not that message. The message is something completely different that then gets everybody worked up, which then gets Renee Ford and a bunch of our people in the administration office to quit. When I've never had a cross word with these people. I hadn't even met half of them. And so that's just my own account. We are held to this high standard of this code of ethics. And Mrs. Hagan would even tell you that we sign that, as members, you sign that same code of ethics. We're the ones that get held accountable for that. And if anything happens, we're the ones that get held, our feet held to the fire, no matter how small, no matter how big. But yet, it's okay for people in the public to stir up all these employees and give them, whether it's, I'm not going to speculate, but hypothetically speaking, they're going to give them false hope, or we're going to save you, or yeah, you should be really pissed off, or whatever the comment is. It's not helpful. That's why people are quitting. And in this very specific instance that I know because my wife was the one helping, Julie spoke with Sandy, and in my personal opinion, I think Sandy as an ex-board member, knowing that she was receiving information that was privileged, she should have recused herself in that moment as knowing and admitting herself, saying that I'm held to these values still because I signed this agreement. she should have said, this isn't the right forum to do this. You need to go to the full board and talk to them and say, there's no general manager. I have a problem and a grievance. And matter of fact, I just read through the employee handbook a few minutes ago, and there's actually a grievance process, formal process to go in front of the board. I didn't know it existed until reading it just a few minutes ago. Okay, none of that happened, and as a result, we have this turmoil. But I would hope that everybody here today sees that we're trying, and I've made some mistakes already, and I'm going to learn from them. And I made a mistake referencing Linda a little while ago, that she was the messenger. And like Garland said, we got to be willing to apologize and say we're sorry. And I'm certainly not here because I want to tear anybody down. I want to, and I know for a fact, everybody here and 10 times this woman wants to lift this place up. So I'm sorry that Mrs. Hagan left, and I think we would all agree that's read the email. We all have our feelings, but at the end of the day, I do believe that Mrs. Hagan has the best interest of the fort at hand, and I hope that she contributes to the fort in the manner that she has in the past.
Ladies and gentlemen, most of you all know us. We're out and about regularly anywhere on the fort. And what I found a little concerning about Ms. Hagan's statement about members came to her and had concerns and complaints. I wonder about that a little bit. Most people on this fort know me. I've lived on the fort for about 20 years. I've listened to a lot of people. I continue to listen to a lot of people. I know Lisa is out and about. Jason and Tony are here. Jason's here quite often now. No one on this fort should ever be afraid or have a concern to come talk to us personally. Heck, I have people come to my house. It's no big deal. We're all neighbors. So those who may have concerns in regards to having to go talk to Ms. Hagan or anybody else, just come talk to us. We're open to hear anybody and all the time. There's no fear. There's nothing to be worried about. And I appreciate everyone's willingness to be here with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
It's not our business about your employees, correct? As members, we don't hire them.
Well, technically speaking, we were just talking about this earlier, that you elect us to manage the association.
Correct.
And so at the end of the day, the remedy for us doing a poor job is to just don't vote us back on and come to community council and voice your concerns, and then at the board level, voice your concerns.
But who you recommend that are your employees? Your employees shouldn't come to me as a member.
That's correct.
That's my point. Shouldn't come to me as a member and complain about their job, because that's none of my business.
No
That's
chain of
your
command.
business, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's the job of the general manager, which I understand what you said. But the general manager hires and fires,
That's correct.
Okay,
not the board.
Right.
okay, that's what I was trying to make sure.
Right.
Except when there is no general manager.
Well, I understand.
Okay.
Can you ID yourself, sir?
Yeah, my name is Bill Herman. I think we have a problem in understanding who owns Fort Clark. I live here, I bought property, I own the property. I am a member of Fort Clark. Most people think because they're members of Fort Clark, they own every piece of ground here. And I don't think that's correct. Because, you said open door policy, and I agree. But as a member, could I come into him and demand that he fire Memo because I don't like him? In other words, chain of command. Right? Most people here don't understand chain of command. This is a business which is owned. We're a member. I would consider that being a stockholder.
Sure.
And you don't go to the president of the board and tell him, I don't like the color of your car, change it.
in a real society, you'd never get that far. Right?
I don't know whether you would or not. You could try.
Yeah, you could, but I think you'd have to go through, you don't go to the president first and then go talk to somebody down here later. You will go to the source where the problem is and talk to that person. And if you get no place, it becomes a manager or a board problem. You know, I've heard people say, I can do anything I want here because I own this place. Now, the lady who's complaining about the cars riding on the green area, well, if I own it, I can use it. Right?
But
I mean, that's the thinking.
Sure.
That's the thinking. And I think people have not, and me included, have never been told chain of command on what problems you have. You know, for a long time, I thought that mud was owned by Fort Clark. It ain't so. But a lot of people think that mud is owned by Fort Clark. I think that's, you know, communications is what the problem is. This is a business who has private residences on it, but it's a business. And you, as a member living here, don't control what the business is. Management and the board control how to run the business, not me. I'm only a member. I think that's where a lot of problems have come in. Plus, the society says, you know, society today says, I don't have to do anything. The government gives me everything I want.
Bill, you laid it out beautifully. I'm a little surprised. I mean, it's your right to sign that letter that Ms. Hagan represented. You were part of that letter. I mean, do you really subscribe to everything she stated? Or they say you all stated?
Well, in general, yes, I would say. But, what happened to me was, again, we don't have a right to know employees' situations. We don't hire them. We don't fire them. We don't pay them. We don't know what their salaries are.
My point is,
It's
did
not
you not
us.
feel comfortable coming and talking? You know us all. We were on the same board. You could have came talk to me anytime.
I've talked to you before, and I've gotten no place, okay?
Well.
That's all.
Let me ask you a question, Bill. Just an honest question. I know you're going to give me an honest answer. Do you feel satisfied with the answers that we've given today as some of the, we'll call it, and I'm full credit here, Chris Race asked some great questions that I didn't really have on my radar, but because I was more focused on this letter and I got real narrow, vision here, but she asked some great questions. They were all answered. We do have a lot of that stuff under control. Most of that's because of Lisa. Do you still feel satisfied as to?
Yeah, I
where we're
understand more about, and I know what your problem are. You're 5 people who don't know how to run a business. I'm talking about this type of business.
And you all did when you were on the board?
I didn't say that.
Well,
So we,
don't start making comments.
I'm just saying that everybody, most people who got on the board around here over the past years had a personal agenda that they wanted to change something.
You got board multiple things, Bill.
I know.
Is that your case?
No.
It's okay. No, don't be upset at him. What are you talking about? I mean, that's really good information. What are you more specifically talking?
Personal agenda.
I think that
I got on the board like whatever in March. Or do you believe that I had a personal agenda?
No, I don't. But to some of the things that you said or took control of.
You mean the golf course?
No, here. You had been running some of the board meetings.
I'm not running
over her.
Lisa is the chair, and she can delegate whatever.
Yeah,
she
but
wants
she
to.
didn't say that.
She doesn't have to say that to you.
No. We don't have to, she doesn't have to tell us that she discussed this with other people and he's going to speak for us.
The board is one entity.
But I've never, but don't be, everybody don't get upset, because this is really good. This is the kind of information that we can grow from. I truly believe that. So it's your perspective that by her allowing me to talk, that it circumvents the meetings in a bad context, in a bad
No,
way?
I don't say that you can't. I'm just saying that she's running the meeting. She's the boss.
Well, she can run the meeting.
Yeah,
She doesn't have to.
this is a board comprised of 5 individuals that all have the opportunity to contribute.
Right, but when he speaks.
If one of us was out of line, Lisa is the president, she could say, you're out of line.
Yeah.
But, you want to censor everybody else?
I can tell you, this board is unified, and
All
that's a
I
lot
wanted
more
to-
than other boards I've seen.
All I wanted
Okay?
to say was that if she has, like you said tonight, that she gave you permission to speak on what you spoke about, I have no problem.
You know, I think that-
But it sounds like you jumped over her because she.
And if I've done that, if I have done
That's all I'm
that,
saying.
if I've done that and it
That's all I'm saying.
sounded
Well, I
like
think
that, I apologize for that if it sounded like that. And to be honest with you, my wife's sitting right there, she would say, that's pretty common. But I have permission.
Well, that's fine, if you had that, when you said that, when you
So
first started, that you.
if there's
spoke to
other
her.
members that have felt that way, I'm very sorry. That is a conversation that her and I have had, I don't know how many times, 50 times?
Yeah.
I mean,
I have
so.
2 things to say about that. Number 1, that is a nitpicking issue.
Yes.
And number 2, you're not giving her any credit.
Yeah.
No, all I'm saying is that I think it should have been prefaced that John is gonna speak on this particular item.
That's your opinion.
Guess what? I'm going to speak on a particular item at some point in time as we have board meetings.
Right.
And I will ask permission, but
But sometimes we've already decided.
yeah, and it's not
But
a,
all I'm saying is that if she's the boss, she should, I think, preface that saying on the particular item of the landfill, Tony's gonna speak on it because he's found some information that we, you
I
know.
think you're nitpicking.
So on the entire letter.
Communicating, and that's not, it's criticism, and it's constructive criticism, it's not a big deal.
On the entire letter, that was your biggest
Hey, if
concern.
we're
out of
gonna
10
reduce to nitpicking, I'm gonna call that a win.
I mean, in reality, if Lisa's not butthurt about it, why should you be?
All I'm saying is that sounds like she's the president, but he ran the meeting.
Well, I can tell you this,
That's what it
I can tell you this, if you went and looked at my email, there's whatever, maybe, we'll say 100 emails. Hers, there's probably 46,223. So, I'm definitely not the president, I don't wanna be the president, and if you get me talking much more about how hard this woman has worked for this association, I'll get teary-eyed. So I don't want to.
I'm not saying
The
that. All I'm
dedication,
saying
the
is
dedication that this lady has put towards this association is hard for me to describe.
There's a chain of command, that's all I'm saying.
Well, and we have all of that.
In the chain of command, delegation of responsibility is vital to ensure upper.
I understand that, but don't you think that it should be prefaced that, but John, think on.
you're running the business.
Well, yeah, and
Thank you. It's.
I always, when I was working on a business, I had bosses, and I always had to talk to them first before I did it.
Always have.
The letter sneakily.
Hopefully we'll have a GM in place
The letter sneakily.
very soon that's going to run this business, okay?
Right.
I got appointed, but these are all elected positions.
Right.
Okay, there's not, and each has an assignment as an officer or as a director.
Well, what is the job of the board?
okay. We all, we're just giving, okay,
I've done it before.
okay.
Well, who,
But
you hired a general manager, I'm not talking about Alan, I'm talking about any general manager. You hire a general manager to run the board, to run the business. And report to the board.
And report to
Right.
the board.
The day-to-day business.
The day-to-day business.
Right. But it sounded like some of the things that happened were not discussed with the general manager, people just went and beat it.
There isn't a general manager.
I'm talking about when there was.
He wouldn't talk to anybody. He wouldn't call anybody.
Village district.
But give us specific, because
Water under the bridge.
I'm okay with talking about it, but give us specific.
Well, when then you and Memo went to Mud about that meeting. The way it was presented was that Alan said that he was working on it, he had gotten some information from Mud.
Well,
And then they went to the board, the Mud board meeting, and said that they made an agreement with Mud that we need to pay for the.
So time out.
Yeah.
Time out. They're gonna get really mad if they talk about this. Do you mind me answering this really quickly? From my perspective?
Well, I
All
know.
I want to the way it looked like is that they went over Alan's head. Now, that may not be true, but that's the way it was presented.
Let me just,
I was present when you guys came to the mud. May I speak? Because I was there.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Several months ago, because I'm concerned about water issues on the fort, I attended the mud meeting, and it happened to be the same one where Memo and Lisa were there. So I'm a witness to what happened. All they did was say that, that the board would like to meet with the mud board. That was it.
well, he's talking about it, unfortunately, he's talking about a different.
About,
a different one.
yeah, the item on the golf course.
But thank you, Terry. All right.
But the way it was presented at the board meeting, it sounded like.
By
you
Peterson.
guys went over.
By Peterson.
No, you said it.
No, sir, I didn't say that.
You said that you and Lisa. I knew you agreed to pay for the meter.
Don't make me use my gun.
Okay. Bill.
Here's
A lot of assumptions are made about motive and everything else. And I just find it, every board can't sit here and justify every one of their actions. At some point, the membership that voted you in has to trust it. They have to trust the people they voted in. And if Memo and I did what we did, it was because the manager was not doing his job. Because he refused to deal with mud and didn't care that they weren't going to get, that we couldn't water the thing.
the golf course.
So I think my job as a board member is to ensure a well-managed board.
I understand.
Well,
But the
and
way,
so, and to
but the
ensure
way
it,
you
we had
presented
to take care of it.
the way you presented it was that you went on your own to the mud board and told the mud board that you would pay for the meeting.
We went to Randy and said, yes,
Yeah,
we'll
I
pay
wasn't
for the
for it.
meter.
It's Randy.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it sounded like you went on your own to do that.
When he would not do his
Well,
job.
that was not.
But that was
that's
only,
what I'm
but
saying.
even Peterson said, correct me if I'm wrong, but even Peterson said in the annual meeting, because this is when my elephant ears really started getting perked up. When he presented his own case against, he was giving his annual report and he was mad at them for what they did. Even in his own account of talking about the metering device, he said, I was done negotiating with Randy. I was not going to pay for the metering device. And then that's when they stepped in, which this is just one of those deals where it's not black and white. At the end of the day, they have an obligation. Mr. Peterson's here for a job. He doesn't give a hoot about Fort Clark. Obviously, by his actions, canceling the surety bond and just walking out the door, come on, man. Seriously? So, them living in that environment for the amount of time that they do with Mr. Peterson, you could argue that nobody knew Mr. Peterson as well as the board at the time, right? If their obligation, the oath that they take to this association is to protect it and its members, then that is to protect the golf course. And if at some point you got to make this judgment call. You're correct. Like, you could read what she just said, ensure that the fort's well managed, well, that's telling the manager to do his job, but the other person on the other side saying, well, you're not supposed to do anything, you're just supposed to ensure. Well, ensure means to make certain. So if Mr. Peterson puts out a comment of, I am done negotiating with Randy, I am not going to buy the metering device. But we have the golf committee sitting here going, or the golf superintendent going, course is about to die if we don't get some water, guys, we're in a drought. Well, what's the board supposed to do? What's the board supposed to do? You cannot agree with it, but at the end of the day, I think the question you got to go to the end to come back to is did they ensure that the fort, that is a portion of common ground that they took an oath to protect, did they ensure that it was taken care of? And did it happen perfectly? I don't know. You could argue that all day long. But at the end of the day, from where I sit, I think they did their job. Did a lot of people get mad about it, including Mr. Peterson? Yes. Were they wrong? Probably not 100%. But
yeah, and I also found, in your defense, if you want to say that, I also found out after the fact. I live on 4th Clark. I have a water meter. It's not my meter. It's Mud's meter, correct?
That's correct.
So I would have, which I shouldn't have done, assumed that this meter in question was Mud's meter.
Well, and it
Now,
may
wait a
still
minute, wait a
be in
minute, wait a minute.
question. No, it may still be in
it's not
question.
over.
But the point being is that if the meter belonged to Mud, then Mud should fix it, right?
Maybe. I've read through I've read more about Mud than I ever cared knew. And of course, you have a board member sitting right here. I don't know whether or not we should pay for the meter 100%.
But the bottom line was the golf course needed to be watered.
No, but
Yeah, that is
the other point that was brought up later after the meeting fiasco was that in fact the meter does belong to the 4th Clark.
Well,
and Randy had papers that showed that Ford purchased that meter.
I think in this moment, the main thing to learn is that, and I think if you went and asked Randy this right now, because I've heard Randy speak about this, that him and Peterson didn't get along.
I know.
Okay. But I think if you talk to Randy about, to most members that know him and to this community, he bends over backwards to try to help everybody out. Hugo, same way. I mean, he'll come over after work to help anybody with anything at their house to be of service to this community. And I think in that moment of everybody being upset, starting with Mr. Peterson and saying, you're going to pay for this, I'm done kind of situation, we lost what was really important. And that's that we got to put the membership first and not our feelings first and not all our BS first and our back baggage. And we got to do what's best for the membership, which is I think what they did. And then on the back end, if we have a dispute, we can sit down and we can talk about it. But dragging it through the public court of opinion, bad idea. And putting your foot down and saying, I'm putting my foot down, I'm not negotiating with them, they're sorry SOBs. That was a bad move by Mr. Peterson, which led to the domino effect of what happened here, which led to a lot of people getting upset when we're talking about $4,588 or whatever it was. Like, is that really worth all that chaos?
The only thing that I would say about that is if the meter belonged to Mud, then they were out of line by saying they would not pay for it. That's all.
But didn't you just say that it was the Fort's meter?
After the fact,
Okay,
we
so
found that out.
at the time, Alan was wrong, they superseded him, fixed the problem, and went on with our business.
But did they know that the meter belonged to Fort Clark?
Well,
I think it doesn't make a difference.
This
This
is
is
real, not a meter, it was
Doesn't
one
mean
meter, it's
satisfying.
paid for, it's done.
Bill, we actually
Living
knew
the
the meter was
present.
law. It was owned by Fort Clark. We tried to set up meetings with Alan and with Travis, and they completely blackballed us.
Okay, all right. I apologize then, but the way it sounded when you just went over, you just went over there and said, we'll pay for it.
So is that why you signed the letter that Sandy prepared?
There's other things that I heard and talked to people about.
Well, come talk to us and we'll give you the answer.
Yeah.
You don't talk to me, talk to anybody here.
Yes.
You don't want to hear me.
I've dealt with you before.
I just want to say real quickly, I love this community. I am not, obviously, I am not a speaker, but every person on this board who I admire and respect have different strengths. This is, well, what you see him do. He's a good speaker, he can get to the point and he can cut through the problems. I can't even articulate. But so my job as the president, and this isn't to puff myself up, is to know what the strengths of the other board members are and to use it. And to know where my weaknesses are, but because I don't speak up every time or I don't articulate quite well, it doesn't mean that I'm abdicating my responsibility to the rest of the board and abdicating my responsibility to the membership. So, I just wanted to say that. And I want to say, like I said, I love this community. And I think there is a bunch of wonderful, amazing people here. And I appreciate all of you that came out to support us. And I appreciate everybody that has a concern that wants to speak it. Because we don't want to hide. We could have, just avoided this altogether and not had a town hall. We'd rather have everything out in the open so that we can understand each other and not make assumptions, because we're all guilty of making assumptions. And that's all.
One real quick comment. I'm Chris Hale. I've been rattling around the board for a long time, served on the board in the 80s, about 40 years ago. I don't think I've ever seen a board in this time that has the combination of strengths of expertise that this board does. And I thank all of you for being willing to serve. And I urge us members, let them function as a board. Don't second guess everything. Don't do the personal attack stuff. Yeah, if they screw up in a big way, come to a board meeting, come to wherever, and register a complaint, but let them function as the board that I think they're very capable of being. And so thank you again for being willing to do what you're doing.
Do we have any questions, concerns? It is now dark, so we can't call it a night. Does anybody have anything else?
I hope tonight clarify the issue that I heard recently, specifically in the letter, that we weren't listening to the membership. That's totally the opposite. And our doors are always open to all of you all, and specifically to the meetings.
Thank you all for coming and been through that. No.